I can, I actually can't see any lectures. I can only see the PowerPoint presentation slides.
Oh, no, there is. Give me a second.
Yesterday I was trying to surf through that and I couldn't find any.
I'll share the link with you. Give me a second. Give me a
Yes.
second.
Yeah.
I've just privately shared the link with you. Could you please quickly check it now and let me know that whether you will be able to see that?
Yes, I can access the link right now. Yes. Thank you so much.
No problem, Ria. No problem. All good. Hello, others. How are you guys? Hi, Ahinsa.
Hello.
Hi, Mason. How are you? Hi, Eva.
Good, thank
Hello.
you. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Hi, Anu. Hi, Tania.
Hi.
Hello.
How's things with you guys? How's the first week of the semester?
All good.
Yeah. Did you manage to organize all your load for this semester?
Not yet.
What other subject you're doing this semester along with this?
Still in the planning phases, yeah.
Okay.
Statistics and finance.
Statistics and finance.
Yeah.
How about you, Ava? What other subject you're doing this semester?
I'm doing social media marketing,
Oh, yes.
customer experience design, and then applied market research.
Wow. So all these are yeah, very intensive. I can.
Yeah, I know. I had the first week and I was like, oh my God.
All good, no problem. So this one would be the easiest one, I can tell you. I can guarantee that this one is the easiest one.
Hope so.
Comparing to social media marketing and
Yeah.
the most complicated one, I'll tell you which one is the most complicated one. The complicated one is the research one. Advanced, yeah, it's advanced level. So who's teaching that? MD?
The experience one, Abby.
Abby is teaching. He's good. He's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had him for my bachelor's. He's so lovely.
He's good. He's good.
Yeah.
And what about the customer experience design? Who's sorry, the research one? Sorry, the research. The advanced marketing research.
Oh no, what's his name? I forgot. Hang on, I'll find it. What's his name? Martin, I think. That's the coordinator.
Okay.
Oh no, it's Dr. I don't know how to say his last name. It's the first semester I've had him though.
Okay. Okay. Martin is the coordinator, right? Martin,
yeah.
Nenore. Yeah. Yeah. Good. All right. I think we can start the session now. Yeah, as I indicated that the first session is recorded, but not the whole part of the first session has been recorded, right? So I can again go back to the assessment. Some of you were not here in the last session. Mason, you were in overseas, I know that. Quickly have a look into the subject learning guide, guys, right? And here you'll be able to see the section-wise the topics and also the assessments. The first assessment is a kind of essay that we need to write. And here we will be working on a particular topic. The topic is that who has the power or the maximum power, whether it is consumer or whether it is marketer. Now, the question is that should we take one particular side while we are working on this particular assessment? Why we are writing this assessment, you'll see the objective is there. Objective is provided on LMS and also an SLG. But taking a particular side is important. But let's say you are saying that, no, Tanvir, I want to critically analyze both sides, and then I want to come to a conclusion. Also fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's say you are arguing that marketers have more power because they have access to information. And in different ways, they are trying to approach to the consumers to access to different types of information. Let's say metadata. They are trying to use those information just to frame or build their strategy so that they can sell more. Selling more is one kind of argument. Marketers' point of view is that they wanted to redefine their value propositions towards the market so that they can effectively enhance the service quality. That is one argument, right? Another argument, if you could look into, okay, no, the consumers do have more power. It's a different ways. Then in that case, you have to provide why consumers do have more power, right? So thinking about the consumer reliability on different kinds of brands or different kinds of products, right? So how consumers are literally sharing their positive experiences with other consumers. So if you look into that particular perspective, then we can provide a solid argument, the kind of let's say advocacy. Consumers advocacy is critical, right? Supporting a brand or acknowledging a particular brand or a corporation or a company. So if we are using that angle, we can say that, okay, consumers have more power. But in between, you can always come to a common point or a conclusion that you're analyzing both parts, part A and both sections or both parties, and then you can provide your insight. Citation is important, all right? So while you are providing your insight, have a look into different kinds of, let's say, theories, based on different literature, right? So, and provide those. Feel free to approach me, guys, while you are working on this one. Couple of literature, seminal work already in this particular area, right? As an example, we talked about capitalism, the formation of capitalism and capitalism or using capitalism in the age of IoT, Internet of Things, right? So how organizations, particularly the big tech companies, are using information and capitalizing power for them to use the power against consumers, right? That is one way of looking into a kind of theory. But other theories are all can be very interesting if you try to provide argument based on that. The second one is the strategic marketing plan, focusing on the digital perspective. So here we will be working for a particular brand, and that is Disney Plus, right, guys? Am I right? Yes, no?
Yep.
Disney
Yes.
Plus we are working on. Yes, correct. So we will be working on Disney Plus. So you'll find a budget for your digital marketing plan. It is indicated that who will be our competitors in a sense of different players, right? Online streaming, you have to consider, let's say Netflix might be one of the big players in the market or in the industry. So what strategies they are using in comparison of that, what kind of strategies as a digital marketing manager or even consultant you are proposing for Disney Plus, right? So how we are using the segmentation, targeting or positioning approaches, how we are using our marketing mix approaches, how you are considering on implementing the campaign based on the time frame, how we are measuring the success, right? And providing some recommendation. So all these needs to be reflected in your group assignment, all right? So that second one is the group one. So we have formed the group, right? Last week, did we form the group, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So some of you needs to join the group. So I will facilitate on that. So and then we have the final exam. Hi, Aiden. Yeah, we'll work on that. Could you please quickly let me know by raising your hand in the let's say chat box that how many of you needs to join the group? Okay, so we have Mason, Aiden, Who else? Ava, you are in a group?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Aiden, Mason, and anyone else? Okay, so can I request both of you guys to exchange your, just form the groups and exchange your contact details? All right, so you'll be in one group, and I think still we are missing 4 people to join the session. They didn't even join the last session. So when they will be joining, then I will be advising them to join your group. Okay. Good.
Yep. All right. Thanks.
No problem. And then we have the final exam, right? So the exam will be during the exam time. And yeah, I'll talk more about that in the upcoming session or week. Okay. Aiden, you have raised your hand. Any question?
Sorry, that was for the group.
No, all good, no problem. So please liaise with Mason, and you guys will be forming a group. Then other people will be joining your group when they are joining this session. Okay. Now the first week we did cover different topics. If we look into that, we try to understand the conventional or traditional marketing throughout the longitudinal perspective, understanding how the technological evolution happened throughout different phases of time. If you can recall, we talked about Industrial Revolution 4.0, all right, and understanding different phases of Industrial Revolution from 1.0 to 2.0, where from the invention of a steam engine to the invention of telephone, right? So how things has changed in the marketplaces, right? And from 2.0 to 3.0, when in this particular stage of time, the invention of microchip processor or computer literally did a revolution in industry, right? And we can see the kind of growth happen after the invention of computer, all right? From Industrial Revolution 3.0 to 4.0. Now we are in this stage of 4.0, and we need to look into what kind of growth has been happening with all different kinds of innovation in different ways. If we look into artificial intelligence, right? Under artificial intelligence, we do talk about, let's say, different kinds of approaches that can be used in marketing perspective or digital marketing perspective. Think about machine learning, all right? So how we can literally use our smart algorithm to let the machine to learn about the kind of, let's say, behavior from the data, all right? So I'll come back to this particular point in today's session. But along with AI, we look into augmented reality, virtual reality, or even 3D printing. All these are some or other showing us the immense growth possibilities. So those are some of our discussion topics that we had covered in session 1. In session 2, we will be covering mostly 2 topics, right? So we'll talk about the microenvironmental analysis, because before we start to launch any campaign, right, or any kind of, let's say, marketing strategy as a decision or as a plan, right? So we understand strategy, and then from a strategy we move towards understanding to gain the objective or the goals of the organization, and some or other we try to break down the goals from based on the time perspective, right? So long-term goals, short-term goals, right? Long-term objective or short-term objectives. So from vision to mission, and how we effectively look through the strategies and try to find out or try to measure whether our decisions were effective or not. Now, the critical thing is that information. So before we take any decision for the company or for our brand into the marketplace, we need to understand the situation. So environmental analysis literally help us to understand the situation, right? Both in micro and macro perspective. So let's look into through the micro perspective of understanding the environment. So that would be the first topic. The second topic would be understanding the digital consumers and privacy. So that is a big question now. So we all talk about the digital revolution, all right, and evolvement with the kind of revolution. Some companies are already proactive. They have changed the formation of the organization, looking into how much they have blended with the digital strategies. But some companies are still into the process. But in between, we have seen that the boundary between ethical and unethical practices, how some of the companies have used the strategies which goes beyond the ethical boundary. So whether there is a kind of policy which literally support or protect the right of the consumers. So that is one critical question. If it is, then what the marketers need to do, right? Whether there's a kind of penalty if they are violating those consumers' right? So we need to look into that. So that would be the second discussion topic. Okay, now let's have a look into. So there's a practical case material as well. So for data breaches as well. So that's the reading. So if you could look into some of the examples of the data breach. So we'll come back to this one after we complete the second topic. Now let's start with the discussion. Can you see the slides? Yeah, thank you, Rika. Okay, good. Have a look into the kind of holistic picture of seeing the business environment, right? Organizations operate, and they do operate into the marketplace, and how different factors influencing them. All right, different ways we look into this ecosystem, business ecosystem, if you look into that way, right? Different kinds of stakeholders, different types of intermediaries, and they have influences on business, institutional level. If we look into government and non-government organization, financial or non-financial organization, different kinds of forces as well. So we can categorize all these into two different levels. One level is micro, another one is macro. So the micro level perspective is very critical. Critical in a sense that the way we see how the organization is assessing its position. Should we invest on, let's say, transforming our business process to everything on automation? If we are considering on processing everything in automation, whether we have the capability or capacity to roll on, that's a critical question to ask, right? But the point is that whether we are ready for that, whether we have skill, manpower, knowledge, whether we are some or other holding or sharing the similar kind of values, everyone is understanding the importance of organizational objective, and those objective is that the digital disruption. But the question is that all the department, let's say the procurement department, the sales department, the HR department, the marketing department, whether all different departments is sharing the same viewpoint. So if they are, then it's easy to implement the kind of strategies. But if it's not, then there is a kind of problem. I like to share a very interesting framework here. If you look into, I'll go back to the slide, but could you please have a look into the McKinsey 7S framework? Can you see the strategy framework? The light is automatically switched off. Can you see this one in the slide? Can you see the 7S?
Yes.
Yeah. So what these 7S framework literally unpacks, right? If you look into one particular organization, when we are considering the internal environment, right? In internal environment, one of the critical insight is that how we are assessing one company. All right. So the difference between, let's say, we are analyzing Microsoft, we are analyzing Amazon, we are analyzing, let's say, Apple Corporation, right? So we need to literally do research on each of these different factors as a kind of framework, right? So that we can understand what's their position. So we have to do a critical analysis or auditing, right? So as an example, I have shared with you earlier. So whether we are sharing the kind of common values or goals of the organization with all these different departments, right? So that is connected with all decisions we are making. What about the structure of the organization? Who is taking the decision for, let's say, the digital marketing strategy or any kind of, let's say, decision considering on investing on the digitization strategy? So whether the power is equally distributed, sometimes we do talk about centralized or decentralized approaches of using power. That is also connected with the organization. We look into the staff, the people who will be simply working for the kind of implementation of these strategies. Think about whether we have the mind. I use this example frequently because that is a very interesting case. The success of Tesla. The success of Tesla is not, everything is not on Elon Musk. You also need to understand the team that is behind him. Yeah, there is no doubt about his leadership approach or the kind of entrepreneur he is, but he has also able to organize a great team, come from Caltech, all right, come from MIT, come from IIT, right? So interesting thing is that that kind of team literally help him to make his dream project successful. Like Tesla, you guys are familiar with Dyson, the British brand Dyson, right? You guys are familiar with that? The British brand Dyson.
Is that the vacuum company?
Yes, they are the vacuum. They are popular for the vacuum, but they also produce some other products as well. But do you know that Dyson also planned to launch EV, electric vehicle? Yes, no?
Haven't heard of it. My brain automatically goes to vacuums when I hear Dyson.
Okay, no, that's fine, my son. But if you look into, if you do a research, do a Google, you'll be surprised to look into that. Dyson had a plan to launch the EV, like the same time when Elon Musk was working on that, and they had a similar kind of approaches, and they were about to invest £7 billion. This is a British company, so they're about to start, but. What was the problem? The problem was really interesting. If you do your research, you'll find so many different reasons that why the whole idea of that particular new product development didn't come through. One of the critical reasons where they didn't have the great team. All right, so that was the kind of, let's say, weaknesses we can analyze that. So to make the whole project successful, we need to do internal analysis, but in internal, let's say, organizational perspective, we also need to look into all these different factors. All right, so think about the running the organization, what kind of style we are using, whether it's a kind of harmony we can see, multiculturalism we can see, right? Because knowledge should be come from different sources. It shouldn't be actually use one kind of angle. A problem is ethnocentrism. When we do analyze the McKinsey's 7S framework, when you read the literature, you'll see that some of the in their empirical work, they look into some of the organization and some successful company as Google, right? So how they are using, let's say, the style or the culture of the organization, quite different from some of the other organizations when they are a little bit rigid on their, let's say, formation of their style or operation, right? So that is one thing that we need to look into. But if you go back to see this one, organization, right? So that organizations needs to be looked through different kinds of approaches. One theoretical angle is McKinsey's 7S framework, but you can also distill some other kinds of relevant theories to analyze the organization or companies as well. Along with that, we need to also look into other different factors. So we need to deal with consumers or customers. Who are our target customers? How we are analyzing them. So based on different factors, right? So based on demographic perspective, if you look into age, gender, or if you look into the geographic perspective as well, location, all right? If you also look into their income, or sometimes ethnicity as well, in different ways, we have to distill all these, right? Have a look into the kind of customers we are approaching to. How can we create or build a kind of insight? So that is proto-persona or persona that we are going to discuss in the upcoming slide. But when we try to create the segments, what are the factors we are using, all right, just to understand our consumers, right? Interesting thing is that there's some other different kinds of avenues that we need to also distill. Some of the consumers are, some or other, they are not so much keen to the technological, let's say, adaptation. Could you guys please do a Google and look into the diffusion of innovation? Could you please look into this one, diffusion of innovation? Can you see in the page here, diffusion of innovation? Yes, no? Can you see it here, guys? Diffusion of innovation.
Yeah.
Can see. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Guys, if you look into this one, so you'll see that a kind of normal distribution, right? Normal distribution of, look, first of all, let me give you a little bit background of this theory. So this theory is given by Professor Rogers, and there's this wide application, different multiple types of applications of this particular theory. We use this one in management, in marketing, in communication. But how this is relevant on understanding the type of behavior, particularly adopting technology, right? So if you look into innovators, so some of the consumers in the market, they are tech savvy. They wanted to spend more, and they wanted to actually approach to or buy different kinds of new products. It can be, let's say, any kind of software or any kind of digital devices. Now we need to look into the, let's say, market-based perspective of diffusion of innovation, market-based perspective, brand-based perspective. Let me give you some example. Think about, if it is in Australia, what is the percentage of innovators? Innovators, they are risk takers. They want to spend more for something new that is coming to the market. And then they're also very keen to adopting the technology, right? Now, if that is the case, then we have to find out, based on our research, we need to find out the actual number. Comparing to Australia, what about other markets? What about in, let's say, some of the East and West European countries? What about in Asian market, let's say in India or in China? What about in South American markets? So we can see the different kinds of, let's say, responses of the technological adaptation from the market perspective of innovators, early adopters who are following them, copying them, then an early majority, and then late majority and laggers. They are not very keen on technologies. That's the laggers, right? Then moving from the country perspective or geographic perspective to brand perspective, some of the brands you look into, you'll see that, or some of the even products as well. If it is a smartphone, if it is a computer, if it is a television, now different ways we can see the distribution changes, right? So we literally need to look into how we can see the responses based on consumer perspective. Can anyone please tell me that what is the employability? Why marketers need to use this particular theory? What is the reason behind it? Why marketers need to use this theory? Anyone, please? Anyone? Why we have to use this theory? What is the employability of this theory?
I can take a guess and say maybe because they will know when it's best to make money off of certain products and
10
when to move
10 out
on
of
into
10.
different things.
10 out of 10. Your bullseye. Okay. So think about the break even, right, Aiden? So think about the break even, when we can reach the break even, right? So that's why we have to understand the consumer responses. We all agree with that, Aiden point, guys? Very simple way. Yes, we have to use this theory because we need to understand the responses of the consumers. Okay, the investors will try to look into, okay, when we'll be able to reach to the break even, because what would be the responses of the innovators? If the percentage of innovators are really high, have a look into this one. So let's say the innovators level is very high. We start from here. So the market is showing the number of innovators is very high. So that means we can very quickly reach to the break even. Isn't it true? Agreed? Yes, no?
Yes, agree.
Good. Okay, thank you guys. Now moving ahead, we're talking about customers, right? To understand the situation analysis, we understand talking about the customers. The second one is the marketplace analysis. Now this is interesting. So when we try to understand the market, we also need to look into the purchasing behavior of the consumers, right? So how the online is literally influencing them. So when we do deal with that, we have to focus on a couple of different factors, right? We need to actually look into the journey map. Important thing is that when we are considering the customer journey map, we can divide it by 3 different phases: pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase phases, right? 3 different phases. And have a look into from initiation till to, let's say, delivery the product, or maybe after purchase or post-purchase stages, how we observe the consumers, the critical approach to look into. So in this particular model, this model is actually derived from this paper. Let me share the paper with you. I think this is Vernoff and Lemos paper published in Journal of Marketing. So customer journey. So that's the second paper. This is the one. So the framework you can see in this particular slide, this is from this model. All right. You can see 3 different phases: pre-purchase stage, purchase stage, and post-purchase stage. And we can see the journey, customer journey, right? So customer need is embedded here, the pre-purchase stage. So what they normally do when they are experiencing a kind of need, so they search for the information. They wanted to get the information from online or offline sources. The critical question is that how effective is our online, let's say, strategy, or the way we are designing our online platform so that they can easily get this information from, right, the sources. Now here you can look into different kinds of approaches we can use: brand owned, partner owned, customer owned, or social or external. So brand owned means that what? Let's say as an example, we are selling Dior perfume. So we have our own website, our social media platform, right? So consumers can buy from our own platform. Dior is also available in David Jones. So that means our partner owned. So they can also buy from our partner. Sometimes we also need to communicate to our target audiences while they are using their own social media platform. So that is the customer owned as well, or consumers owned as well. Or maybe we are using different kinds of other external sources. Let's say YouTube. We are promoting that, and customers can actually literally learn from that particular sources as well. So effectively, we have to focus on the touch point as well. Can you see the touch points in each of these different stages? Can you see the touch points? Yes?
Yep.
Yep. So we literally need to focus on how the information or marketing stimuli is, let's say, exposed to, information is exposed to the consumers, and how effectively we are framing these strategies. So take a note of this paper. Could you please take a note of this paper? It's very interesting reading. Okay, let me share the citation of the paper. So this is in the chat box, guys. I've shared the link of the paper with you here. All right, coming back to this framework or the model this is adapted from Lemons and Werner's paper, but here you can look into different phases: awareness, consideration, purchase, and experience of the product, right? Adapted from pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase. But if we look into our performance, the design of our communication approaches by using different mediums or different channels, right? So if it is, let's say, the kind of awareness approaches, what kind of mediums we're using, all right? So the digital communication out of a store and digital communication inside of the store, okay? And then you look into the product experiences. So somewhere or other we can use, let's say, the trial marketing as well. If we are considering on each of these stages, right? So how we are somewhere or other, let's say, getting the feedback from all of these, so we can critically analyze our own performance as a kind of auditing. All right, and you can use a scale here. Can use in the right hand side, it's not indicated in this particular diagram, so we can use a scale here, and out of 10 we can easily give a kind of weightages, right? And then we can find out where we need to improve, even in our, let's say, customer journey map. So the question is, which one is more essential? But that depends on the consumer decision making model. Some of you have already done the consumer behavior or advanced consumer decision making or consumer behavior subject, right? So here you will be you look into different stages: identifying the need, search for the information, evaluating the alternatives, purchase, and the post-purchase decision, right? So all these are 5 different stages. The question is that which one is the most important, let's say, stage for your consumers, right? While you are dealing with your digital marketing strategy, whether it is some or other educating them with the kind of information that you are sharing with your online platform or push-based messages, or it is more important into the comparison or evaluation of alternative stages. So here you can look into awareness is some or other connected with identifying the need, all right? So if we are using the kind of, let's say, out of store approaches, what kind of billboard or digital billboard approach we are using, or what kind of social media strategy we are using, so that they are exposed to all these different kinds of or different types of marketing claims that we are making. How that particular information is convincing or persuading or motivating them, right? So the consideration stage, and from here to purchase one, and then the post-purchase strategies. That day, one of my friends was asking me that which one is really critical for you when you're paying for a particular product or brand in online shopping platform. Before purchasing, I always look into, think about this one, I always look into safety or security, right? Whether my payment is secured or not, right? So as an example, I always look into whether they have used PayPal, all right? Because some or other that is connected with a secure payment system in many different ways. If the payment is not secured, then the concern raises. So how we are embedding strategies in each of these different phases or stages. As an example, let's say experience the product. If it is positive experience, how we are analyzing that. Can we connect these experiences with our social media platform, right? We can connect with, let's say, Facebook to WhatsApp, and we can easily measure the sensitivity analysis of individuals who are, let's say, providing the feedback, tweeting or retweeting. That can also be measured, right? Or if let's say they are mentioning about our product or our brand, we can analyze through social mention how many people are talking for the brand or even against it as well. It can go beyond our website. We can analyze it from our website or from our social media platform. But anything that has been, let's say, mentioned in any other different blogs or platform, we can also measure it. Now, the reading that I have shared with you earlier in the chat box, that is very, very important. And also the customer journey map and touch point. Please try to look into the touch point is also very, very important. Okay, so we're talking about the customers. So who are the customers in this particular ad? Who are the customers? Who are the customers in this particular ad? Any insight? Anu?
The parents, the family.
Aiden, just look into this one again, once again. This is from UNICEF.
Hi,
Doctor.
People.
What about philanthropists?
Exactly, philanthropists, the donors, right? They are the customers.
Yeah.
We're using this one to get some donation. Aiden, you agree?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So if you look into the way we are approaching to different types of strategies, branding strategies, communication strategies we're using through our digital marketing decision, we need to literally look through the kind of objective that we are embedding. Okay, moving forward, we talked about it, the consumer decision making, some example why consumers buy product. Okay, this is important, consumer personas, right? The kind of digital presentation or depicting the digital perspective of understanding how we see the consumer persona. Okay, as an example, to look into segmentation, different factors, different variables we do use: demographic, geographic, psychographic, behaviorals, right? These factors literally are used to identify some of the homogeneous need of the consumers, because there's a lot of heterogeneous need in the marketplace. Now, out of hundreds of different factors on consumer choices, we can use the frameworks, right, to identify the homogeneous need. And geography or location, consumer location, demographic, let's say age, gender, location, diaspora, or ethnicity, all right, income, different ways we can actually categorize the customers, right, based on their homogeneous need, or lifestyle or values, right? Now, interesting thing is that when we will be designing the strategies for those consumers or customers, literally we need to work with a collective viewpoint of segmenting all those prospective consumers into the market. And that is consumer persona or customer persona. Sometimes we also use another terminology is called proto-persona. Okay, so proto-persona is also same as consumer persona. So here you can, here you can look into one example of consumer persona. So for a particular product, you can design like that. So what the customer's goal or objective or expectation, how we are actually defining or framing the kind of functions or experiences, right? How the customers are actually defining them with the product, or without the product sometime. That is also very, very critical to understand the pain point and the gain point of the customer. With the product, what is their gain? Without the product, what is the kind of pain? So interesting thing is that we need to incorporate these into consumer persona or proto persona. How to create a consumer persona. All right. Information is critical. Data is very, very essential to look into, right? So we can create or build the proto persona by collecting information from consumers in different ways. We can use different research approaches to collect information. We can use interviews or in-depth interviews or focus group, or sometimes we can do observation as well. Now, metadata are widely used to as a kind of supplement of other different approaches, all right, like surveys or interviews or focus group. You can use those data to design the proto persona as well. And after you get this information, you can literally use this one in your CRM platform, because this also literally the customer persona can also literally create a lot of leads as well. All right. So if you identify the, let's say, effective responses from one particular segment or one particular customer persona, then you can consider the probability of approaching other different kinds of similar segments as well. All right. And then also our digital strategies can be easily created if we clearly identify our customer persona. Some example of create customer persona as an example for Disney. All right. If you look into the information based on demographic perspective, what the customer's expectation from Disney, how they actually look through, how much they wanted to spend, how they consider with Disney or without Disney. All right. What kind of, let's say, pain or gain we can actually consider, common objections, or how they are considering themselves as defining their self or slash identity. All this can be considered as a kind of approach to design consumer persona, but not limited to. Different ways. If you do research, you'll find different approaches, different questions being used, or different kind of framework as well. There's so many examples you'll see on designing consumer persona. Okay, moving ahead. We need to also deal with the competitors as well, our customers as well. So here we need to deal with Michael Porter's 5 forces model, right? Because that literally help us, the theory literally help us to identify our kind of approach or strategies towards the industry, right? So this is Porter's 5 forces, right? If you look into this diagram, industry selection based on purchasing power of the buyers, or bargaining power of the buyers, also bargaining power of the suppliers, threat of substitute products or services, how big is the window to enter or exit from the industry or from the market, and also whom we will be competing against, how big is the player in the market or competitors. Each of these are very, very essential to look into. We have covered this theory normally in the marketing management unit, but a brief insight on this is that if we are categorizing our kind of, let's say, approach towards the industry suitable or not suitable, right? So in that case, this framework is one of the let's say essential one to use, so that we can identify which particular industry we will be selecting or we will be deciding to enter into. As an example, as a critical example to look into, bargaining power of suppliers out of all these 5, right? As an example, whether the suppliers, if you're looking into, you are going to invest on a particular industry, and then you are considering, okay, we have to do the adaptation with digital or technological, let's say, adaptation, but the suppliers of all these products or raw materials hike the price, that impacts on your actual value proposition towards the market. So if we do not have control on them, then it is a problem. Also, as another example, think about the threat of new entrants, whether there is a kind of restriction. If we are planning to enter to the telecommunication industry in a certain market, and government has raised the tariff, raised the bar because of they wanted to save or protect their local industry, right? So that can be a kind of challenge, or maybe a future challenge as well. If you go back to look into the longitudinal data and what is the normal responses of the government for any kind of FDI or foreign direct investment, if we are actually come up with a kind of interest not receiving positive feedback then from the local government, then it might be an issue. So we need to also deal with that. Or maybe the last one, the competitors who are competing against our brand or against our company. A classic example is Indian context, right? So one of the Indian giants in telecommunication industry, they have invested in the first year, they have invested more than $26 billion only in telecommunication industry. So you might think about that the existing players or maybe the new entrants into the market, they might fear to enter to that telecommunication industry because the big player or the kind of conglomerate has invested a huge amount of money into the market. Now that kind of huge injection or injecting the capital literally creates the difference, right? So Porter's 5 forces are very, very critical to look into. Now, other important perspective, we need to also critically analyze different players in the market when we are analyzing competition: market leader, market challenger, market follower, and market niche. All these 4 critical, let's say, players in the market, and all of them have 2 common strategies. We need to understand that one strategy is retention, another one is gain. So when we are clarifying the strategies, we also need to understand that market leader has to deal with retention and also gain as well. That means how they are keeping their customers happy with them, and at the same time how they are approaching to new segment. Similar like that, market challenger, market follower, and market niche. As an example, market leader can be, if it is, let's say, electronics product, market leaders can be Sony. So Sony, they do have retention approach, and at the same time they do have the gain approach. But when they are dealing with the retention approach, they also deal with reducing the churn or churn rate, right? Some of us are familiar with that. Okay, so they try to reduce the churn rate. Anyone like to share some insight on the churn rate? What is churn rate? What is churn rate?
Inactive customers after a period of time.
Inactive customers or the customers who left, right? Yeah, the percentage of customers, right? Thank you, Mason. So in different ways, we have to identify the number of customers who left, all right? And if we don't, then the problem becomes much more bigger. As an example, we use this metaphoric example, the leakage in the water bucket, all right? So how big is the leakage? So you're pouring the water, how many customers are leaving, how much water is going out from the bucket, right? Leaking from the bucket. So we have to literally find out while we're analyzing this approach. And all four players in the market, they are using the kind of approaches, retention and gain. Which one is more expensive? There's another relevant question though, whether retention is more expensive or gain is more expensive as a kind of marketing expenditure. Which one is more expensive? We understand the question, guys. Which one is expensive, retention or gain?
Gain.
gaining new customers?
Of course, yes. Gaining is more expensive, guys. You're absolutely right. Retention sometimes also help marketers in different ways. If you look into the loyalty, the loyal customers becomes advocate now. So they are bringing more customers for our company, for our brand. So that's where we have to invest less on retention, but more on gain. So we have to be very, very careful from let's say reducing the churn. All right. If the churn is more, that means we have to invest more on gain. Isn't it true? If the churn is more, that means we have to invest more on customer gain. Okay, we covered that, suppliers. Now, that is an interesting reading. Okay, so if you look into the reading, that's the link I have shared in the week 2. This is by Ronald Rust, Research in Digital Marketing. All right, if you look into different ways, what kind of avenues we have to look into. Our strategy literally depends on, now you can look into all these different factors from 1 to 5, right? So start looking from environmental perspective and then looking into inside of the organization. Then we look into different kinds of value proposition from inside and outside of the organization, from, let's say, value equity, brand equity, relationship with the customer. These are all essential sources where we can actually find or collect data, how effectively we can use it. And connecting with that, your market research, and then the marketing strategy or decision. So please have a look into the reading, just to build our insight about the digital marketing strategy, considering on the research framework, where to use the research, which particular, let's say, domains we need to use research for what. Okay, so it's a kind of comprehensive framework created by Professor Ronald Rust. Okay, any question, guys, before we move to the next topic? Any question?
No.
Good. Okay, the second topic and the final topic for today's discussion is digital consumers and privacy, mostly the consumer privacy, right? We have couple of examples of data breach. Okay, so as you could look into people's privacy in the digital footprint, but how much do these giant tech companies, they do care? That is a common question, right? Do they really care about it? Do they really literally let's say maintain that kind of ethical boundary? What data do apps collect, right? If you look into the kind of data apps do collect, have a look into this one.
When was the last time you read a privacy policy? According to various surveys, only 20% of users do that. Are you among them? The recent Face app craze is a good example. When agreeing to the terms of service on the AI-run photo filter app, you granted the app a perpetual, irrevocable, non-exclusive, royalty-free worldwide license to distribute, publicly perform, and display your user content at any name provided. So don't get surprised if your face appears in a random ad, gets photoshopped, or becomes a viral meme. Most apps are not that extreme, but quite a lot of them use third-party tools to collect large amounts of data from your device. That may include the web pages you visit, any add-ons, and other information that assists the app developers in improving the service. That's how you get those targeted ads. Location tracking is also a big thing. App developers can sell it to various advertising companies who want to know where you go and how long you spend there to target you with ads. So next time you download an app, do read that privacy policy. For more information about all
right, that's really interesting, because some or other, I also sometimes think about why they are coming up with so many different clauses while we are downloading or accepting and using a particular apps, right? Whether we literally spend time to read through all these different small tiny bit of fonts used to explain those clauses. what are the kind of benefits they are proposing with all these clauses, right? Some or other a kind of controversy that is coming forward or put forward by the marketers, because marketers are using this kind of approaches, right? And whether this literally enhances the concern in particularly academic or research world. One of the interesting work has been done by Harvard Professor Shoshana Zuboff. I'm very much a kind of interested and also connected with the kind of interesting insight used by Professor Zuboff on surveillance capitalism, what surveillance capitalism actually is, and whether marketers are using this one. Because when we say surveillance capitalism, that is some or other is using the data or using the information, right? Let's have a look into a very quick explainer video on surveillance capitalism, and then we will talk more about that. So if we look into this one, oh, this is the one, the short one.
So what is surveillance capitalism? So it has long been understood that capitalism evolves by taking things that live outside the marketplace and bringing them into the market so that they can be sold and bought. For example, the idea of nature. With industrial capitalism, nature was dragged into the marketplace and reborn as real estate, land that could be bought and sold. Historians have written about the way in which human activity itself, the kinds of things that people did in their homes, in their cottages, in their back gardens, those activities were brought into the marketplace and reborn as labor that could be assigned an hourly wage, bought and sold in the marketplace. In an interesting way, surveillance capitalism follows in this tradition. And I say interesting because there are other ways in which surveillance capitalism sharply diverges from the norms and principles of capitalism over the centuries. But in this respect, it mirrors this history in that surveillance capitalism has claimed something from outside the market and brought it into the market to sell and buy. But in this case, the territory that it has claimed is private human experience. Private human experience has been claimed for the marketplace to be sold and purchased as behavioral data. And more specifically, the way this works is that our experience is claimed unilaterally for the taking. Our experience is rendered as behavioral data by the takers. Those behavioral data are then combined with very sophisticated machine intelligence capabilities. The outcome of the computation and behavioral data, the outcome is what I call a prediction product. These are computational predictions of what we will do now, soon, and later. Those predictions are then sold into a new kind of marketplace. What is this marketplace trading in? It's trading in bets on our future behavior. I call it a behavioral futures marketplace. So these prediction products are like futures derivatives, but in this case, they're derivatives of our behavior. So the bottom line, friends, is that our futures are being sold and bought in a new kind of behavioral marketplace.
That's pretty scary, isn't it, guys? So what's your opinion on that? What do you think about it? Any comment on this one? Any comment on surveillance capitalism? So how much data we are actually sharing with Google? If you look into that, how much data we are actually literally sharing with Google, and whether they are some or other using all this information for benefiting the customers or consumers, right? That is a kind of concern, right? If you look into the surveillance capitalism by Professor Zehoff, the concern is that most of the companies has become, let's say, the tech companies, but how they are, some or other, using this information as a kind of power. That's why we are using the concept capitalism, because in capitalism we do distill the concept power, how power is being used by the rulers on top of the ruled, right? Information has become a biggest strength for those companies who are using their surveillance strategies to collect information. We have seen government and non-government organizations or business entities or enterprises now playing a big role to collect information as a kind of, let's say, create a power and using those power on the marketplaces, or let's say other different avenues. Okay, moving ahead, have a look into some of the privacy concern, right? PricewaterhouseCoopers published a report in 2017, right, where we look into consumer attitudes about the data security or cyber security or consumer trust or misinformation, right? And we can look into some of the key findings here. 69% of the consumers believe companies are vulnerable to hacks and cyber attacks, and how this literally impact on the corporate image, or their image is in crisis as well. All right, so there's a very interesting way to look into the other different kinds of literature which talks about some of the consumers can switch out from a kind of, let's say, reason. The reason is that they do not trust or rely on their brand because they have a fear that their information or private information can be breached. As an example, if you look into the problem with Barclays Bank in UK, so the hacker hacked their server, shared more than 2,000 of their customers' private information or banking transaction information, literally put the brand into a crisis. The second one is that 10% consumers feel they have complete control over their personal information. But what about the other 90%? So they have less reliability or the trust of the companies, the way they are dealing with the customers' information. 25% of the customers believe most companies handle their sensitive information or personal data responsibly. Others do believe that they are not using it responsibly. As an example, if we look into Facebook and Cambridge Analytica as a kind of classic case study, right? So how the whole American election was some or other influenced by Cambridge Analytica. 72% of the customers believe business, not government, are best equipped to protect them. So government has to do a lot comparing to protecting the information in different ways, different kinds of necessary and fundamental services we receive from government, but how much they are doing, sharing information. Mostly in developed worlds, we look into that, but underdeveloped world or developing worlds, the problems are much more extreme. Okay, some examples of looking into different perspective of different countries, the data protection viewpoint in North American context, Australian context, right? Here we can look into some examples on how it has been regulated. Okay, so that's all from today's session. Any question, guys, before we move to the class activities? Any question you have? Any question from the topic?
No, thank you.
No, all good.
Thank you. Okay, now could you please go to session 2 and open the HBR reading. Can you see the HBR reading? 6 digital strategies and why some work better than others. Can you see the reading, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. So we will start doing the reading, and then we will work on some of these let's say insight that we can build from this particular reading as digital strategies, which one is effective and which one is not. Can we start, guys? Can you start the reading?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it. Hi, Sun, Yifu Sun. Hello. Hi, Pratiksha, you're there, Pratiksha?
Yes, sir.
Pratiksha, a quick one. Are you in a group for the group assessment? Are you in a group? Who is not in a group?
This is this is my first class, so I'm not sure whether I've been allocated to the group or not.
Okay, that's fine. What about you, Muskan? You're in a group? Pratiksha, could you please liaise with Aiden and my son? They will be your group members, Pratiksha.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, could you please exchange your email with your team members, and then you can organize the time for the group meetings, right?
Sure.
No worries. So how far you are, guys, on the reading? So have you looked into the 6 digital strategies?
Just started reading it.
Sure. Hi, Erica. Who are in your group? Who are in your team?
Hi, I believe it's Ava. Hold on.
Mhm.
Yeah, Ava, Anu, and Ray.
Good, good. Okay, so I think we are all organized with our groups. So we have, for the final group, we have Jiaming, Yu Fu Sun, Rui Kao, and Jiang Wang. So that's the 4th group. So if you finish reading, so what's your insight? Anyone like to share your insight? Who wants to talk? Anu, you like to share some thought here?
Sure, Doctor.
Yep.
So it's talking mainly about how companies have started adopting digital strategies.
Yep.
And how some companies who are already in the industry have not really adopted these, and then they're kind of lagging. They're falling behind of the people who have actually adopted these.
Yep.
And then it talks about different categories of companies. So they've categorized one called big and bold. So this big and bold, what they do is they use a process called cannibalization.
Yep.
Where they use most of their profits or revenue rather into investing in digital strategies. So what this research has found is that, companies that actually do this, properly do this cannibalization, they are actually, leading the market. And these 6 types of digital strategies are the ones that they have found that companies are using. So the
Mhm.
first three are offensive, where
Expensive, yeah.
they are spending, they're using more of their profits, that is cannibalization, whereas the final three are defensive,
Expensive,
where
yeah.
they're trying to maintain their existing customers instead of tapping into new markets and stuff. So that's what I think. Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? If you look into one of the strategies, that cost efficiency, but that approaches of digitization considering as a survival strategy. Okay, so what is a unique way to look into that? Good insight. Thank you, Anu. Any other insight? Anyone else like to share? Myson, any viewpoint? Renat? Sorry, yeah, Myson, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't have anything to add at the moment. Sorry about that.
Okay, all good.
Yeah.
No issues. Renat, you like to add something on that?
I found it interesting that to transform digitally, the offense is better than the defense position.
Yes, good. Yes, good insight. And
Yeah.
why it is better than the defense? Why offense is better than the defense?
Well, the defense kind of just settles for the
Time being.
yeah, for what's already there. While offense, it kind of involves adopting new innovation and new strategies.
Because it is also connecting with the competitive advantage as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Renat. Good insight.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. All right. So thanks for reading the article and sharing your insight. Now, as I've indicated to you, 2 readings, right? One was the customer journey map, Lemons and Vernos paper. This is the one. Another one by the Ronald Rust paper on research on digital marketing. The framework we had used in the slide. So these 2 are the useful reading, and then you can also have a look into the data breach cases as an example from LMS. And do liaise with your group members regarding your group meetings and discussion for the major assignment on Disney Plus. All right, so that's all from today's session. Any question? Okay, so thank you guys. Thanks for joining the session. I will see you next week. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.